The first thing to do is to outline what we do currently today, because we certainly do have a lot of rules and regulations in place that you may or may not be aware of, and the residents and citizens may or may not be aware of. So let's at least make that presentation and bring everyone up to speed on what currently happens, and then we can go from there. So today we're going to review the state law, review the county's regs and practices, and we do have some recommendations at the end for you to consider. Okay, we started the slideshow with terminology because a lot of terms get thrown out related to this topic, and we wanted to make sure that we're following along and you all understand when we use a term of art what that references. A lot of times we talk about ethics laws or code of conduct. That refers back to the Delaware State Code, and within the code, which we're going to go over in detail, the state code has and outlines and has ratified their code of conduct right in the Delaware State Code. The PIC, which is short for Public Integrity Commission, PIC, that refers to the State Ethics Commission, also established in the same code, in the same chapter within the code. So anytime we speak about the PIC, that's the Public Integrity Commission. Rules of procedure, those are the rules that you endorse every single year. We'll bring the rules of procedure to you in the first meeting in January. You'll review them and we'll adopt them. Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes we will adjust them throughout the year if something comes up that we need to address. We are currently reviewing the rules of procedure for this session in anticipation of making some recommendations for next session. Mr. Moore and Mr. Robertson is helping with that. And then the term conflict of interest. A lot of times that's raised, so-and-so has a conflict of interest or a perceived conflict of interest. As I'll get into in a minute, that's outlined in state code. It's not outlined in county code, so we have to reference back to state code. This is the paragraph that references state code, and I think it's worth noting 5805, I'll paraphrase it, but in short it says, no state employee, and for reasons I'll explain in a minute, state employee also refers to county government employees and county government officials. No state employee, state officer, or honorary state officer official may participate on behalf of the state in the review or disposition of any manner pending before the state in which the state employee, official, officer has a personal or private interest. And then fast forwarding to the last sentence, to the end of this sentence, anyone with a personal or private interest who has a personal private interest may nevertheless respond to questions concerning any such matter. A personal or private interest in a matter is an interest which tends to impair a person's independence of judgment and the performance of the person's duties with respect to that matter. So that's the governing paragraph for the state code when it references conflicts of interest. Okay, so I said a minute ago that we are going to go into detail reference to the Delaware State Code. The code of conduct that we're referencing is established in Title 29, Chapter 58, Subchapter 1. This code of conduct, per state law, applies to all local government officials and employees unless that local government adopts their own code. When they do adopt their own code, it must be as stringent as the state code or more stringent. Makes sense. Because Sussex County has not adopted our own code of conduct, we automatically fall under the state's code of conduct. So if anyone asks you, does the county have a code of conduct? No, we do not. We fall under the state's code of conduct, which numerous jurisdictions around the state do. We often ask, well, what do the other two counties do? Kent County, they adopted their code of conduct in 1989, which I believe is even before the state adopted their own. So maybe they were grandfathered in. But Kent County does not have its own ethics commission. So any investigation or request of a attorney opinion or guidance on some situation, they too go to the PIC for that guidance. Newcastle, on the other hand, they have a code of conduct they adopted in 1990. They have an ethics commission which is established and appointed by their council. You may recognize one member of the commission. It's Judge Tolliver, the judge that helps us with our appeals. They do hold ethics training with their county officials and employees. We've seen this information from their website. They have a pretty robust website when it comes to their code of conduct. They do review complaints and issue opinions. Last year they issued 2 opinions. It's a fairly active commission, just judging by what they have online. They do come at a cost. Last year's budget line item for the commission was $344,000. So I wanted to share with you our view, and I think some of you share some of these opinions. We have discussed this in the past, of the advantages of following the state code or falling under the state code. First, everything is already established, right? The state code passed by the Delaware legislature and the corresponding rules are in place. There's precedent that's already been established. The Ethics Commission as well, the PIC, is already appointed. That's appointed. It's in place. They also have a Deputy Attorney General that's hired and assigned to the PIC. That process is ready and able to help us. And we do ask for guidance throughout the year quite often, whether it's communication between our attorneys and their attorneys or official attorney opinion requests. We're able to access them, and they are very helpful and provide great information. I'll show you in a minute their website. A lot of information is already publicly available for research purposes or guidance purposes. They're fairly timely, right? When we ask for a PIC request, they are able to have an attorney's opinion or general guidance in a very timely fashion. They're also able to meet. I think they meet nearly weekly or biweekly, so they're able to get a meeting scheduled fairly fast. As compared to perhaps the court system, the PIC works in a very timely manner.
Mr. Lawson, if I could interject there,
please.
Oftentimes, too, they will even have special meetings. I've had occasion where I've asked for an advisory opinion, and because of the timeline, they actually called together, convened a meeting by Zoom or telephonically, and was able to have it in order to give an advisory opinion in a expeditious manner.
As I said before, they have an established process that makes their rulings transparent and public. I wanted to maybe go into a little bit of detail what I meant by that. I'm going to pull off the slideshow for a second and go into the Public Integrity Commission's website. Their website is part of the state's website. This is their page on Code of Conduct Opinion Synopsis. But if you go up to the menu, you can see numerous selection choices here for folks that are doing research on issues with the Public Integrity Commission. If you care about looking at the agency and the membership right now, you can go through this at your leisure. But I wanted to highlight these opinion synopsises. What the PIC has done here is, let me zoom in a second. The PIC has taken these topics and organize them in these bullet lines: things of monetary value, post-employment, personal and private interest. And that goes back from 91 to 21. And they've compiled that in these documents, hundreds and hundreds of pages. So when you click on this link, you can go in and read some of the previous decisions that they've made. And this is a great source for anyone that has a question, or staff that has a question that we may need to investigate and look into and provide guidance on. If I clicked on the personal or private interest link, it would bring up this PDF. This is 363 pages of decisions. You can see here, this first one is a decision in 21. These numbers denote the year. The first number is 2021. And it goes through. This particular circumstance has been redacted so that people's names are removed. And you can see it involves the University of Delaware. It involves an employee of the state. And it just goes through in detail the question at hand and then the decision that the PIC made. I'm going to fast forward all the way down to page 300 because there's a somewhat famous case in Sussex County history of a question that was brought forward to County Council all the way back in 2000 involving the previous County Council membership. Mr. Dukes, Mr. Jones, Mr. Rogers. there was a question of personal and private interest in ownership in business related to the ability for the county council to render a decision on an application in front of them. This particular application involved the Freeman communities, and it was an 887-acre development near Fenwick Island. Anyone guess which development that may be? So this is a very lengthy discussion about the question of their personal businesses creating a conflict with their elected position and their ability to vote on the application. In the end, the PIC said that there was not a personal or perceived conflict of interest. I want to note this one sentence here. Generally, I'm reading right here, generally advisory opinions or complaints are confidential per the Delaware Code. However, applicants for advisory opinions or persons charged in a complaint can give the Commission written authority to release the information. In the next case, such authority was given. So in particular, Mr. Moore is familiar with this. The council wanted this information out there, so they asked to have this released, and thus that's why it's published. Okay, so that's what is available, some snapshot of what's available at the PIC's website and information that we often access if there's a question raised. The last advantage of following the state code is it avoids any conflict by requiring the county council to appoint a new commission. So if we were to go through the exercise of appointing a commission, you all would have to appoint that commission, 5, 7, odd number membership, and then perhaps there would be an opportunity for a complaint to come forward, and then that very commission that you appointed is being asked to make a decision on circumstances perhaps involving the county council. So in other words, the appointed body, the appointing body is being judged by those that are serving on the commission. It may be a circumstance where folks would have to recuse themselves. Sometimes when we have a PIC hearing or investigation, members of the PIC from Sussex County that perhaps have a conflict will recuse themselves. So it's a circumstance that does happen in certain times. Did you want to make a statement?
No, it's just another point on that same issue. A lot of the people tend to think that everything is a good old boy network, and if Sussex County is appointing its own commission, they're making their decisions, and it would be necessarily in private. Oftentimes people think, well, they're protecting their own, excuse my allergies this morning, where with the state process, we know who's named on the commission already, and you also have a Deputy Attorney General assigned and is in attendance at every meeting. So even if something come forward and it would raise to the level of potentially criminal implications, the Deputy Attorney General is in there and can refer it for that. So just having that separate organization that's above the county and has no connection with the county making the decisions, I think frankly is healthier and would give the public a much greater sense of independence than it would be if it were a Sussex County organization doing so.
Thank you. Okay, we mentioned the advantages. Now we'll mention the disadvantages, at least from staff's perspective. Disadvantages of establishing our county code, a county code of conduct. It would require a new ordinance, so it would require time and effort and our legal team to draft an ordinance. It would create duplicative government functions. If we have to pass our own ordinance, it has to be as stringent as the state or more stringent. So you would ask yourself, which part of the state code would you want to make more stringent? It would require the county council to appoint an ethics commission. Now, you may or may not, like Kent County does not have an ethics commission, so they go to the PIC. But if you did, we would have to establish some type of membership qualification, potentially results in hiring another legal firm to represent the commission, much like you see Mr. Moore represents the council and Mr. Robertson represents the commission during subdivision appeals. Mr. Tolliver is paid to come down and run the meeting. So we're going to have to perhaps seek additional legal representation if we were to have our own commission. Future investigations and hearings are made without precedent. In other words, this is all new. and conflicts may occur or will occur with the council's appointments, what Mr. Moore just addressed. So it would be new for us. We would have to start something, and you would choose to do that if you so choose. You'd have to ask yourself why. What part of the code would you want to be more stringent? And then how would we actually establish the Ethics Commission and develop qualifications if we chose to do so? Okay, I'm going to ask Ms. Jennings to come forward. She's going to highlight some of our county practices that we have done and some additional examples.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of council. First, I want to start off to say that I take the code of conduct very serious. I've put things in place prior to this, and when we were questioning things, I just want to be very clear that I protect the tax dollars, and I have things in place, and I just want to go over that now, things that we've already have established. So the first thing is, in 2014, we did have the Public Integrity Deputy Attorney General come in and speak countywide and gave ethics training at that time. In 2015, OMB, the federal government, put out new guidance on conflict of interest. So when we take federal funds, we also have requirements to the federal government to say that that money is being spent correctly. Part of that guidance says that we are required to, as a recipient of the grant, to disclose in writing any potential conflicts of interest. So I went back, looked at what we had already been doing. I was appointed in 2013. We did not have anything in writing from the employees, so I only know what I know, what people tell me. So I felt like it was time to go to all the county employees, do a training on our purchasing policy, find out if there's any conflicts of interest. So what I had done is I asked all the employees to fill out a conflict of interest form. Here's the form. And it says, any employee having conflict outside personnel, economic relationship, or any perceived conflict of interest shall disclose the details in written statement to include the nature and scope of his or her outside personal interest to the extent that the financial benefit received at least one time or more frequently if his or her situation changes. They need to report this back. So I received all of these. I looked at them. I signed them. I give them to accounting. They mark if a vendor could possibly have a conflict of interest so that we know for reporting requirements. At that time, county council had filled out this form as well. They are an employee, so they had been given this. New employees, when they come in, they all have to fill out this form. I give them a copy of the conflict of interest and code of conduct behind this form, so everybody has that as well. To expand that, I also added on our county intranet. So when county employees come in the morning, our intranet page pops up. And on there, on the very front page, is a button, a reporting tool for all county employees to report if they're aware of any harassment, fraud, waste, or abuse. And they can report anonymously. It goes to myself and it goes to Mr. Lawson. There goes to 2 people, so it has our bases covered. And then we can research it. You can always, employees are always able to go straight to the Public Integrity Commission if they feel like there's an issue, but we also have something in place internally. To expand that even further, I was talking to the auditors, and the auditors always ask me if there's any kind of transactions, related transactions that occur in the county. Again, I know what I know, and I felt like it is probably time maybe to work with council to have an annual disclosure form that I could report back to the auditors and say, I ask every year if there's any kind of conflict, if we have any related Part 8 transactions, is what they're called. So in 2019, I worked with Mr. Moore and the auditors and came up with an annual disclosure form for county council. And I'm going to quickly go over those questions that are covered here. Bring it here. So the first one says, are you or any family member, officer, director, trustee, or employee of a commercial, non-profit corporation, partnership, association of other organizations which has or may have an economic or other relationship with Sussex County? So council has opportunity, yes or no. Also, I felt like this form also gave the opportunity for council just to think about things also every year that maybe there could be a conflict. Number 2, do you or any family member have a material financial interest or any corporation, partnership, or other entity which has or may have an economic or other relationship with Sussex County? Number 3, have you or any family member disclosed or used any information relating to the county's business for your personal profit or advantage or that of any family member? And 4, have you or any of your family members accepted gifts, gratuities, entertainment that may influence your judgment or actions concerning business of the county since, and this would be the form that you would fill out in January, so I had already updated it, January 1st, 2022. So as you can see with these questions, they're very similar to if you read the Code of Conduct in the state of Delaware. These questions have been pulled right from the Code of Conduct. So we're just lining up with what the code had already said. So again, council fills those out. And moves on to recommendations. So as you can see, we do go above and beyond what's in the state code. We kind of enhance it so that I'm able to make sure that we are in compliance with the state code. So at this time, Mr. Lawson's going to go over some more some recommendations that we could do to strengthen our code of conduct here in the county.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Jennings. So one of the things right off the top that we thought, and I've discussed with a number of you, is we should have another ethics training down here and invite the PIC, Ms. Moreau, the Deputy Attorney General, to come down and again provide a training here in the chambers or in another venue if it requires that for county officials, whether it's the 5 of you, the 5 Planning and Zoning Commissioners, the 5 Board of Adjustment members, and key staff members to get a refresher on the code of conduct that we fall under for the state.
Mr. Lawson, didn't we film, when she came down in 2014, did we film that?
We did.
Any new employee or whoever would watch that?
That's correct. In 2014, we filmed her presentation with her permission. We made a file with that presentation so that new employees and new members of the boards would be, the employees were required to watch the video, and new appointments were required. I would say it's probably a little stale now. It's almost been 10 years, and I don't know that that requirement has been followed for the entire time period when we were onboarding new employees. But that was the intent. And initially, because not everyone could even come to that meeting, so we filmed it so that everyone had the opportunity to review the material. It was a great presentation. It was very intuitive, but also very comfortable because you could ask questions, and she's a remarkable source of information to provide guidance on this topic. Let's see. So number 1, schedule new training in 2023, hopefully in the first quarter. We try to find a date that works for the most folks. The forms that Ms. Jennings just reviewed, and expand that from county council members to all our elected and appointed officials for an annual submission. Require all new elected and appointed officials to review the training, so we would film the training again and do as we did before, and maybe do it and ensure that it gets done. Develop brochures similar to Newcastle County that are easy for the county staff and board members to understand. Ms. Jennings has already started with a brochure that looks a lot like what Newcastle County does, that we could provide to staff, make it available in the lobby, and readily available for folks to review. And then place a fraud and abuse form on the county's website to allow external people to report instances of fraud and abuse. So similar to what we already have as a form on our intranet, make this available for the public to report in the county's website. I would say the PIC has that as well already. So if you have a complaint that you'd want to submit directly to the PIC, that's how you're able to do so. They have that form on their website. And I believe that's the conclusion of our presentation. We're open for any suggestions, comments, questions, thoughts.
Mr. Lawson, Is there a link on our website if anyone wanted to look up ethics or code of conduct that would link to the PIC?
Don't believe there is at this time, but that's certainly something we could add
That way,
to jump
someone
into.
would be able to go from our site straight to PIC to file a complaint if they desired. One other thing that, and I just briefly mentioned it a moment ago, and that was concerning advisory opinions. Oftentimes I appear before them, not for complaints, but we hit a situation with council or some other board or commission that's been brought to our attention, and immediately say, wait a minute, this is something we're not sure of. We want to make sure we get the protections. We've looked at all the guidelines in past cases, but we're better to have the protection of a PIC opinion. And we will contact them and outline the different factors and send to them, and they conduct a meeting, and they do it very quickly and give us guidance on, yes, this is okay, this is not okay, here's the kind of guardrails you need to protect the employee so you are in compliance. And they're very helpful and very easy to work with.
I would think that with the additions that you're suggesting be included, I personally, I don't see why we would need our own commission that we would appoint. Because there again, you get back to, I think, Everett's comment a while ago about, you're going to appoint somebody you know probably. And it just, to me, it's much easier. The state has it in place. You use the state. They have no ties to somebody in Sussex County having to do whatever they got to do. It's all a separate thing. They do a good job at it. Why would we want to create another form of government at a cost that's going to give you the same result? They're going to hear it and do whatever. I think the PIC does a good job. We've had certainly things before that have come out and all in the good. But I just personally see no reason to do anything separate from what they do. Use what they have in place. It's already there. It's already set up. And then add the things that the staff has suggested, which makes sense, that we should be doing that. So that's a personal opinion. Anybody else?
And when we use them, I know it's a rare occasion to use the PIC, but do they bill us?
No.
Or is that something the state pays for and?
That's correct. There's no billing, so
Okay.
it's all, they don't bill the county. So,
State budget, they provide, but they don't charge us.
I got you.
and just to go into a different level on this, anytime we have, like our appeals that you all hear from Planning and Zoning Commission decision where we have to bring Judge Tolliver down, and that's a very technical and time-consuming process where we have to get the legal ads correct. We have to work with all the schedules of you, the schedules of Judge Tolliver, the schedules of the parties that want to appear. It's a very time-consuming and it's quite difficult to get it right, quite frankly, when you think about all the details that go into that. If we were to go in that direction with an ethics commission, the same rules and processes would apply. And we would have to make sure that we are able to meet the rules because they're guided by the rules that will be in place. It is much easier to ask the PIC to appear or ask for an attorney opinion, and they're already set up. They've got their meeting scheduled, they've got their attorneys locked in, and we can ask them, and they usually get back to us in pretty timely fashion.
If I read that right, that budget for that unit alone is over $250,000.
For Newcastle County, the equivalent of what they do with a 7-member body,
Yeah, 344 for
$344,000.
that, and that's just one county.
Yes.
Mr. Lawson, there's one additional item too, that if the county had its own commission as opposed to the state, we're a small county. Everyone knows everyone. And many of the questions that come before this kind of board needs to be confidential because it may be you're asking for guidance on something that's very sensitive, or it may be an accusation someone makes against someone. Maybe it's not true. And so it's necessarily confidential. You look at that. I would have a concern of potential leaks in a small community having that. You see people going into a room, and you wonder, well, they must have a complaint against them. Or here's the day that this commission's meeting, we see the commission members here, so that person who showed up. It's easy to find out, as opposed to we go up to Dover, have the meeting. Now, oftentimes, they're Zoom meetings anyway. There is no potential breach of confidentiality in those kind of matters. And, for the other reasons that have already been discussed, the PIC process is a very good, well-established, well-protected process with even the Attorney General's oversight, which is very important.
Anything else from council? Anyone else? Okay, this will come back to us with the changes you want to make or whatever for January 3rd meeting?
Yes, so in relation to the rules of procedure, like I said, we're working with our attorneys team to update some of that, and then we will contact the PIC for a potential ethics training date.
Sure.
Once we get a couple dates, we'll circulate that to everyone, set up the venue, and move forward, and then we'll start working on the annual disclosures as well.
Okay. Thank you both very much for all that. I will say while you're up here, something just struck me. Not this specific thing, but you brought it up where we have sometimes the appeals to us. We bring Judge Tolliver down and whatever. As in my memory, sometimes they were held by code to do that within 45 days of something. And before we've been pushed right against the window because of people's time, that should be looked at probably. That should be pushed out from past 45 days.
Very good point, yes. 45 days from the time the court transcript is received, we have to have that hearing and make a decision, or you have to make a recommendation. So it is.
I would just say take a look at that also about pushing it back farther, that's all.
We will definitely look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you all.